What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It's time to continue my 2023 college football schedule preview / projected records for the upcoming 2023 college football season, and we continue them with the LSU Tigers. There was a schedule last year for LSU. You look at the overall record for this team last year, 10-4 overall and 9-3 in the regular season. Of course, that fourth loss came in the SEC championship game. But they ended up getting a bowl win as well. An overall pretty good season for this LSU team under first-year head coach Brian Kelly, now heading into the second year. And you look at who LSU played in the non-conference. They played Florida State at New Orleans. That game turned out to be a loss there for LSU in the last second, missing a game or an extra point attempt. They also played Southern as well, New Mexico and UAB. The non-conference schedule not too tough for LSU last year. And you also look at who they played in the SEC East. They played Tennessee here at home. I mean, that's a game that we thought LSU probably could have won and also probably could have competed in, but they did not even compete in that game. That was probably one of the worst games I think LSU pretty much played all year long from last year. And then they also played Florida on the road, which they won that game on the road. And, you know, they play Florida every year, so it's no surprise they get Florida out of the SEC East every year. So now looking ahead to 2023, will it be another run for this LSU team to the SEC championship, or will they miss out? Maybe this is a step-back year for them, or maybe this is another run they could make for the college football playoff. But let's get right to the schedule now for 2023 for LSU, and here is that schedule. And you look at who they play in the non-conference. They'll play Florida State here on September the 3rd. They'll play Grambling here on September the 9th. And Florida State's going to be a tough non-conference game. I mean, you know, that game is in Orlando this year. I mean, of course, it was played last year in New Orleans. Now it's going to be played in Orlando. So it's a pretty interesting neutral site game. Once again, this game will be on a Sunday night. So, I mean, it's going to be pretty much a good game once again between these two teams. And they'll also play Army and then Georgia State. So, once again, the non-conference schedule not too tough for LSU, but the tough non-conference game is obviously that Florida State game. Of course, you know, Florida State has a lot of production coming back, including Jordan Travis at quarterback. And, yeah, Florida State's going to be a pretty good team this year. They brought in a ton of transfers as well from the transfer portal. So, yeah, LSU is going to have to really bring their A game into that one. And you also look at who they play in the SEC East. They will play Missouri here on the road on October the 7th. A Missouri team that was pretty decent last year. And then they'll play Florida here on November the 11th. Yeah, and they play Florida every year, so it's no surprise they draw Florida every single year out of the SEC East. So they will play them once again this year. And that's a Florida team that has a lot of question marks. We don't really know what the quarterback situation is going to look like yet for Florida. So we'll get to the rosters, though, pretty much, you know, throughout the rest of this year until the offseason pretty much rolls around forward. And, yeah, LSU and Florida here. Not a tough draw here out of the SEC East. Of course, you know, that game against Missouri is on the road, but it's not really a tough environment to play in. But I think LSU probably will still be favorites heading into that game. We'll get to the projection in just a minute, but let's go game by game now. LSU will start out the year on Sunday night against Florida State here on September the 3rd, and then they'll play Grambling. So two non-conference games to kick off the year. Like I said, Florida State's going to be one of their toughest non-conference games on here. And then they'll play on the road at Mississippi State on September the 16th. A Mississippi State team that's going to have to get a new head coach, but, you know, this team, you know, was good last year. Had a pretty big shot to beat LSU last year, but LSU pretty much beat them at home. And this time it's on the road. You're going to have to deal with the cowbells and everything. But you never know what can happen. Maybe LSU's going to probably not be favored in this game, but they probably will be because of their season from last year. Then they'll play Arkansas here on September the 23rd, a rival game that you never know what can happen. Arkansas almost beat LSU last year at Arkansas, but this time it's a home game for LSU. And then they'll play Ole Miss here on the road, a tough place to play here in the SEC West. Going to be a tough environment, but, you know, Ole Miss, we don't really know what they're going to look like either on the roster. We don't know who the quarterback's going to be. I know Jackson Dart was the quarterback last year. Maybe he wasn't consistent enough, so, I mean, there's going to probably be a different quarterback down there. And then they'll play Missouri here on the road as well, so back-to-back road games here on the road at Ole Miss and then Missouri on the road. So, yeah, it's not tough back-to-back road games, though, I believe, for this LSU team. Ole Miss definitely one of the toughest, you know, places to play here when you look at this schedule. And then they'll play Auburn here on October the 14th, a rival game that also can go either way. But an Auburn team that has a lot of question marks heading into the 2023 season. Hugh Freeze coming in. We don't know what the quarterback situation is going to look like either for this Auburn team. But maybe you never know what can happen. It's a rival game between these two teams, but good news is LSU gets this game at home. And then they'll play Army here on October the 21st. An Army team that likes to run out the clock. They'll probably run out the clock on this LSU team, but I think LSU will still be favored, no doubt about it, because it's a non-conference game. And then they'll get a bye week after that game. They'll play on the road at Alabama. They beat Alabama last year. That was probably the biggest win they had from last year as well. And Alabama looking for revenge in this game. We don't know what they're going to look like either on the quarterback situation. And then they'll play Florida here after that on November the 11th. It's a home game for LSU. Like I said, a Florida team that just doesn't know what they're going to get out of. We don't really know what they're going to look like. Anthony Richardson is gone, but they got a transfer coming in from Wisconsin that's a quarterback, so maybe that helps them out. And then they'll play Georgia State here on November the 18th. Pretty good Sun Belt team, but LSU still should be favored big in this game. And then they'll play Texas A&M here to end things out on November the 25th. So, yeah, and Texas A&M beat LSU last year. LSU looking for revenge in this game. Probably much, will be focused on this game ahead as well. And that's the schedule for 2023 for LSU. So, yeah, the schedule kind of really big, tough a little bit because they have to play Alabama every year and also they have to play Florida at home. But, they get that game at home at least. They also have to play Ole Miss on the road and Mississippi State on the road. But they also have that tough non-conference game to open up the year against Florida State. So it's kind of a tough schedule here for LSU, but let's now get to the projection here for this LSU team, and this is the scale I've been pretty much using throughout these projections. 1%, 20%, and 40% games, you're probably not going to see any of these games on here, but these are games where I think LSU will be like underdogs in. 1% is about, they don't really have a shot to win. 20% about a couple touchdown underdog, and then 40%, these are about a touchdown underdog. 50-50 games, though, these will stay in the white. These are pretty much games where I think that can go either way. 60%, LSU will be favored by about a touchdown. 80%, these are games where LSU is going to be favored by a couple touchdowns. And then 90%, these are games where LSU is going to be favored by about a lot. So more than, 3 touchdowns. So we'll start with those games in the green at 90%. And I just got 3 of those on the schedule. I got Grambling, Army, Georgia State. Pretty much, the easy cupcake games here on their non-conference schedule. Grambling will be over 99%. Army probably about 90% because, Army likes to run out the clock. And then Georgia State will probably be at 95%, perhaps at 90% as well. But I think LSU will be clear favorites heading into these games. They have no business in losing these games as well. Even if it happens, it's going to pretty much ruin their season. But I think LSU will be favored by 90 or, more than 3 touchdowns. So now we go to the games now where LSU is going to be favored by a couple touchdowns, but I don't have any blue games on here, so we'll skip ahead now to the purple games here. 60% games where LSU is going to be favored by about a touchdown, and that's almost the majority of their schedule. That's on the road at Mississippi State, Arkansas here at home. This is a game that I probably could have put here in the blue, but it's a home game, and also it's a rival game that you never know what can go. Like it can go either way. Let's be honest. When it's a rival game like that, you don't really know what can happen. Missouri on here on the road. I probably could have put this one in the blue as well if it was a home game for LSU, but it is on the road, and I'm going to stick it with it in the purple. And then Auburn here on October the 14th. This is another game that I probably could have put in the blue because it's a home game, but like I said, it's a rival game. You just never know what can happen when these rival games come to play out. And then they'll have Florida here. I think they'll be favored by about a touchdown here against Florida. A Florida team that kind of struggled last year. Maybe they were just a decent team, but also it's a rival game. You just never know what can happen. I probably would have put this one in the 50-50 games as well, but I think LSU will be favorites going into this game because it is a home game as well for LSU. And the rest of their games here on this schedule are pretty much, 50-50 games. I'm going to go with Florida State, Ole Miss on the road, Alabama on the road, and Texas A&M here at home. Now, Texas A&M, I probably could have put that one in the purple as well, but Texas A&M beat LSU last year, and I just got to put this one in the 50-50 game category. It's also a rival game. You just never know what can happen. Could be back and forth, but LSU is looking for revenge in this game. Florida State, that's obviously their tough non-conference game because it is at a neutral site game. If it was on the road for LSU, I probably would have put them as an underdog because Florida State beat them last year. But as of right now, I got it as a 50-50 game, a game that can go either way. Ole Miss definitely on the road is a tough place to play. That's why I got to put it in the 50-50 game as well. And LSU beat Ole Miss last year, but I know they probably will still. It still will probably be a 50-50 game, but maybe LSU will be favored. You never know what can happen as the season goes by. And then there's that game on the road at Alabama. Now, I probably could have put LSU as an underdog in this game, but the way they beat them last year, I got to put this one in the 50-50 game as well. So that maybe they have a really big shot to beat Alabama on the road. So how many games do I see LSU winning in the 50-50 games? Well, I see them winning like 2 out of those 4 games on the schedule. Maybe it's Florida State and Texas A&M. Florida State is a neutral site game, but maybe they lose to Ole Miss and Alabama, and maybe that will be their 2 losses there on the schedule. But like I said, you never know what can happen in these games. Like Florida State, they could probably still lose that and maybe lose to Ole Miss and Alabama, so maybe they can go 9-3. But, the overall, when you look at this schedule and pretty much, look at the games that they're favored in, let's now give you a projected record. It's not official prediction. My predictions don't begin until the month of May. So if you look at this schedule, and you look at the games that LSU is favored in and also the games that are 50-50 games, the overall projection for this LSU team in 2023 comes out to be 10-2 for 2023. Now, those 2 losses could come to somewhere on the 50-50 games, like, for example, like Alabama and Ole Miss, probably on the road could be some losses. And you never know. They could probably lose to Texas A&M at home and then lose to Florida State. So any of those losses can count. Like I said, I think they win 2 out of those 4 games on the schedule. Like maybe they beat Florida State, maybe they lose to Ole Miss and Alabama, and they beat Texas A&M. So, yeah, the overall projected record for this LSU team will be 10-2. I think worst case scenario for this team would be about 9-3, perhaps. Best case scenario would be 11-1. Let's say they pretty much lose to, maybe their only loss comes to Alabama on the road, and that's pretty much their only loss they have. But will it be another run for the SEC championship for this LSU team? We don't really know yet because we're still early in the year. We don't know what the rosters are going to look like just yet. But that's my overall projected record for this LSU team. Let me guys know what you think about this projected record for LSU. What do you think their projected record will be? And also, what games do you think they'll be favored in? And stay tuned here for more on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.